So the BBC, the supposed gold standard of truth, has just been caught doctoring a Donald Trump speech, not editing for clarity, not trimming for time, doctoring it to make him look like he incited a riot. According to a leaked 19-page whistleblower dossier seen by The Telegraph, the BBC's flagship programme, Panorama, allegedly spliced together parts of Trump's speech from different times, making it appear as though he'd urged supporters to fight like hell before the January 6 riots. In reality, the original line was to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Now, you might think, surely someone inside the BBC would catch that. Well, they did. A former BBC Standards Committee advisor says he warned them, but executives and even the chairman brushed it aside. And what follows is a story about bias, denial, and a broadcaster that just might have crossed a line too far once again.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
And it's the allegation that has rocked broadcasting. A Panorama episode titled Trump, A Second Chance aired a week before the US election, allegedly mangled Trump's words. The edit, cut from the start of his speech straight to a line nearly an hour later, stitched together two unrelated remarks. The result, a version of Trump that sounded like he was marching on the Capitol, urging an uprising. The whistleblower's report claims this wasn't just sloppy editing, it was utterly deliberate misrepresentation. Viewers were shown images of rioters waving flags and storming the Capitol, paired with Trump's fight like hell line. But the footage, it turns out, was filmed before his speech even began. Critics argue that this isn't just bias, it's manufacturing a false narrative. And when your slogan is "Trust us, we're impartial," that is a serious credibility crisis.
The BBC claims to be the pinnacle of impartial reporting. But what if there was an internal dossier that revealed that wasn't the case? The Telegraph has seen a letter that reveals one of the BBC's own independent advisors repeatedly warned that the broadcaster had serious and systemic problems.
Next up, we're going to look inside the whistleblower dossier. You see, the document compiled by Michael Prescott, once an independent advisor to the BBC's Editorial Guidelines Committee, accuses senior figures of ignoring repeated warnings. Prescott says he raised alarm bells about misleading edits, only to be told there was no breach of standards. His 19-page dossier was sent to every BBC board member after internal routes failed, and it compared the incident to the infamous 2007 Crown Gate scandal, when the BBC edited footage to make it look like the late Queen stormed off a photo shoot.
It will look better without the crown. I've heard it will look better, less dressy, because the garter robe is so extraordinary.
Dressy? What do you think this is?
What I mean is, if you take the crown off, just for a couple frames.
Yeah, no. I'm not changing anything. I've done enough dressing like this. Thank you very much.
Prescott says the same culture of defensiveness still thrives today. Executives who treat criticism as hearsay, not accountability. He even warned the chairman, Samir Shah, that allowing doctored video to air sets a very, very dangerous precedent. No reply ever came. If true, this isn't a minor editorial slip. It's a question of trust in public broadcasting itself. So what did Trump actually say? Let's strip away the noise. Trump's real quote on January the 6th was, "We are going to walk down to the Capitol and we are going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard."
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Then 54 minutes later, separate topic, separate context, he added, "We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore."
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we fight. We fight like hell.
Panorama merged those two sentences into one. The show's cut made it seem as though he'd said fight like hell while promising to walk with the crowd, giving viewers the clear impression he was urging confrontation. And that edit transformed meaning. The word peacefully vanished, replaced by fight. In media ethics, that's not just editing, that's rewriting reality. So what was the BBC's defense? Well, when confronted, Jonathan Munro, the BBC senior controller of news, reportedly said it's normal practice to edit speeches into short-form clips. And Deborah Turnis, the CEO of BBC News, backed him, claiming the edit was justified contextually because Trump has been accused of undermining democracy. So obviously that made it okay. But the whistleblower disagreed, pointing out that even the US Justice Department didn't charge Trump with incitement to riot precisely because he didn't tell supporters to storm the Capitol. And Panorama's version, he said, erased that nuance entirely. Executives refused to admit wrongdoing. No correction, no note to viewers, just silence. This defensiveness, the dossier claims, reveals a culture where narrative outweighs accuracy. And when that happens at a taxpayer-funded broadcaster, accountability becomes optional. So then we have the political fallout and public reaction. The Conservatives immediately demanded an inquiry. Shadow Culture Secretary Nigel Huddleston called it one of the most alarming examples of bias to date. Yet people like me are accused of it all the time for spitting out facts. Boris Johnson called it a total disgrace. Nigel Farage said it proved why people are ditching their licence fees. Even veteran presenter Liz Kershaw, hardly a partisan, said she wasn't surprised at all, describing years of outrageous groupthink inside the BBC. Meanwhile, Caroline Dinniage, chair of the Commons Culture Committee, said Parliament would be discussing it. For once, everyone from Westminster to Washington agreed on one thing. If the BBC did this, it's catastrophic for trust. This isn't about Trump, it's about editorial honesty, because if they'll edit him, who else might they edit next? Because we then move on to the broader pattern of bias. You see, the same whistleblower memo also accused the BBC's Arabic service of bias over its coverage of the war in Gaza and of effective censorship around gender identity debates. In short, bias isn't limited to one documentary. Prescott described systemic denial, executives dismissing staff complaints, refusing to publish findings, and even discouraging external scrutiny. And critics argue this reflects a broadcaster trapped between politics and ideology, trying to please everyone while satisfying no one. The BBC's defenders say these are isolated lapses in a vast organisation, but with every leak and dossier, the isolated lapse defence looks a whole lot thinner. And next we ask why this matters beyond Trump. You see, you don't have to like Trump to see why it does matter. Editing a world leader's words to fit a narrative isn't journalism, it's storytelling with a political aim, one that's seen by millions of people, or sheep as we refer to them. When media manipulation comes from tabloids, people shrug. But when it comes from the BBC, the institution funded by the public, mandated to be impartial, it undermines the entire idea of public broadcasting. It gives ammunition to every populist who says the media are lying and every cynic who stops believing anyone. In an age of AI, deepfakes, manipulated videos, and algorithmic misinformation, the BBC's integrity should be our last line of defence, not another source of spin. This isn't about right or left. It's about whether the people you pay to inform you are showing you the truth or a convenient version of it. So next we move on to the history of Crowngate and the consequences. Do you remember back in 2007, Crowngate, the BBC released a trailer showing Queen Elizabeth II storming out of a photo shoot. The footage was reversed. The controller of BBC One resigned. Back then, the BBC called it a cavalier edit. Now critics say the Panorama edit makes Crowngate look like a typo. Prescott himself referenced Crowngate in his memo, warning that history was repeating itself. If an external production company's mis-edit warranted resignations, what does it say when in-house journalists splice footage to make a president appear to do something that he actually didn't? And yet, as of today, no resignations, no corrections, and no apology. So we have to ask the bigger question. Can the BBC still be trusted? You see, this revelation arrives as the BBC prepares to renegotiate its royal charter with Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy. The licence fee model, sneered at by many, survives because of one principle: trust. And if that trust collapses, so does the funding. Fewer people are paying the license every year. Many feel the corporation no longer reflects them politically, culturally, or socially. And it's also why many more people are turning to people like myself. The BBC says it takes feedback seriously, yet it continues to defend decisions even insiders call indefensible. Maybe the problem isn't a few bad edits. Maybe it's an institutional blind spot, a belief that we know better and can get away with what we like. And once that mindset sets in, impartiality isn't policy, it's just PR. And ultimately, here's the irony. The BBC Panorama edit wasn't exposed by right-wing media or American pundits. It was exposed by the BBC's own standards advisor. He believed in the BBC enough to try to fix it, and they completely ignored him. So when people accuse the press of bias, this is why, because stories like this confirm that many of us already knew that truth has become secondary to narrative. If the BBC wants to restore trust, it needs transparency, not silence. Because when you manipulate a president's words, even one as divisive as Trump, you manipulate public perception. And that's not journalism, that's editorial engineering. The rest of us call it misinformation. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If this can happen to a US president, what chance does the average citizen have of being reported on fairly?